Welcome to Steno Compendium. Get ready for the dictation. 5 seconds. India has reached the moon, but it has failed to get its women out of homes. The economic survey finds that 60% of women in India in the productive age bracket of 15 to 59 years are engaged in full time housework. India continues to struggle to provide its women with equal opportunity on international measures of gender equality. India scores low on women's overall health and survival and ability to access economic opportunities. Since the woman's economic engagement is related to her own and her family's well being, the continuing decline in rural women's labor force participation is a cause for concern and both affects and reflects these worrying gender gaps. The economic survey acknowledged this and highlighted that the state should design policies that better involve women in the economy. It quoted the World Bank, noting that no country can develop and achieve its full potential if half of its population is locked in non remunerative, less productive, and non economic activities. Unfortunately, when it came to allocating funds, the budget relegated women's economic participation to secondary importance. Many agricultural, social programs, and female focused initiatives received little attention and were ultimately dismissed to the aspirational but not practical list. Ignoring India's declining female labor force participation at a time of economic distress is a mistake. Involving women in the economy is not a social cause, it is a source of efficiency, gains, and economic growth. In a country where young women's education is now at par with men's, ignoring that half of the population isn't participating equally in the economy means we are missing out on innovation, entrepreneurship, and productivity gains. The large potential increases in GDP that could accrue to India and countries around the world if they could only close their labor force. Gender gaps are often cited. A report by Global Institute suggests that if women participated in the Indian economy at the level men do, annual GDP could be increased by 60% above its projected GDP by 2025. This striking figure undoubtedly rests on a variety of assumptions, but the underlying conclusion is that women's potential to contribute to GDP is huge. The same analysis also suggested that India's potential GDP gains through achieving economic gender parity were larger than gains in any of the other regions they studied. So, in the absence of significantly large budgetary allocations for women targeted programs. How can the state be responsive to women? An important focus could be smarter policy and gender intentional implementation. A key example comes from Manrega, a program whose official policy has long been to pay individual workers in their own bank accounts. When we examined the program in Madhya Pradesh in 2013, we saw that this policy was typically not implemented and that women's wages were usually being paid into the bank account of the woman's husband. Working with economists from various universities and tested how women's activities and well being changed when this straightforward policy was put into effect in conservative areas of northern districts in the state. We helped women open their own bank accounts, trained them on how to use their accounts, and made sure their Manrega wages would be deposited into their newly opened accounts. We used a randomized controlled trial to assess the casual impact of the change, measuring its effects against a treatment group of women who continued under the status quo. This seemingly small change, giving a woman digital control of her wages, had a big impact. Women who received digital accounts plus training worked more outside their homes, not only for Manrega but also in private employment. Importantly, women from especially conservative households reported higher economic engagement and an improved ability to move about their communities unaccompanied. Surveys conducted 3 years after we partnered with the state to implement the policy showed that the program also began to influence restrictive patriarchal norms. Husbands in especially conservative homes reported they would face relatively lower judgment from their community when their wives left home to work for pay than similar husbands in randomly assigned areas where we did not implement the policy. The program we tested was already the official policy. It simply had not yet been implemented in these areas. Although we now know this already mandated strategy can empower women and draw them into the labor force, approximately 15% of women with Manrega linked accounts, over 13 lakh women, are still paid their wages in joint rather than individual accounts. Fully implementing this policy mandate need not entail additional budget outlay, and it could have important impacts on women's lives in rural areas, even as it spurs rural economic growth. But rural women also need options beyond Manrega. Continuing to improve ease of doing business and addressing rigid labor market regulations can also draw more women into high potential sectors such as those supported under Assemble in India,